Good morning, my friends. Your old pal Jordan the Lion. I hope you're having a great day. Well, John and I are up and ready to rock. We're gonna go out for a walk, and I've already had a pretty crazy day. I wanted to let you guys know that I've already put into production. I'm doing a limited edition of 100 green Daze with Jordan the Lion sunglasses. There will be something special on both sides of the arms of the sunglasses, and they'll only be available through my Facebook page or if you email me at dazewithjordanthelion@gmail.com. Now on top of that, which I'm actually supposed to get those on Monday, I'll be able to send those out, and if you want to support, you'll be able to wear my green sunglasses and help support this channel. Now I also got a really interesting sponsorship offer today for something very close to what I do on this channel already. So if that pans out, I'll let you guys know, and could be a very exciting future for this channel. Daze with Jordan the Lion begins now. Well, it is a beautiful day here in Los Angeles. Let's take Jaw for a walk, and I'll tell you what we're gonna do today. I think we're gonna take Jaw over to that little park they just opened. That's the real Hollywood. Oh yeah, definitely gonna have to go to the King Tut exhibit. All right, here we are. He's already found some friends. He's found a friend that they're just chasing each other all over the place. Well, gang, what I decided we're gonna vlog today is actually one that I have vlogged before. However, I had a mishap with my memory card and I lost the vlog. So today, we're gonna do a completely different story about this person, a completely different place that they lived, and this is somebody who just celebrated their 96th birthday. Today, we're gonna go look at the life-changing apartment of Miss Doris Kappelhoff. Miss Doris Day. Now Doris's story is very interesting because she didn't want to be an actress. She wanted to be a housewife. All she ever wanted was a happy home and to be a happy housewife. But at an early age she developed a love for dancing, and that started her down a path that originally she thought would be her future. A bad group of dog owners. Nobody seems to be able to control their dogs. Well, that's weird. So we're gonna go drop this guy off and then we're gonna go do the vlog. Oh, the Breeders. I didn't even know they were playing. Now it's hard to believe that the same woman who would make her career as being almost like the goody two-shoes virgin girl next door would go through such a tumultuous life before she would even enter cinema. You see, her story goes back to, I guess you'd have to say her being 8 years old. Like I mentioned earlier, Doris's pretty much her whole goal for life was to be a housewife, and where a lot of people believe that came from was at the age of 8. Well, basically throughout her life, her father had never really shown much of an interest in her. She always was interested in dance from the age of 5 years old, and her father was actually a choir director and organ player for the church, and he just never really seemed to give her any attention. And at the age of 8 years old, her mother caught him cheating on her and decided to leave him. And so basically their life would start over without him, and even when he left the family, he would say goodbye to Doris's brother but never say goodbye to her. And many people believe this just always left an impression on her that she always needed someone, that would always be something she was looking for to complete her life. Now at the age of 8 years old, with the family splitting up, Doris's mother would be working in a bakery all day and Doris would throw herself into dancing. She had already been attending classes for a couple of years before that, but now she would really go full force and would be studying tap, ballet, gymnastics, acrobatics, and would actually get so good that she would find a dancing partner. And she would also at this time become very interested in cinema. In the late 30s, this would have been around 1936, 37. Musicals were big and dancing duos were big, and so she idolized Ginger Rogers and found her own dance partner named Jerry, and they would go off and enter dance competitions together. Now, after performing together pretty solidly for a year, they entered a competition and won $500. Now, what's cool is that instead of the family splitting that money between the two, what they did was they decided to invest it back into the kids, and they sent Jerry and Doris out here to take a month-long class with a professional dance class. Basically, it was a dance company or dance school that offered a 4-week program and basically discovered whether you had it to go into movies and would help coach you into that profession. Now, in that 4-week span, these two 13-year-old kids showed so much promise that their families agreed to go back to the Cincinnati area where they were from and pack up and move both families out here to start their career. Now, unfortunately, when they went back to Ohio, tragedy struck. You see, Doris's friends decided to throw a going away party, and on their way to the party, the group of friends were driving and Doris was in that car. They didn't hear a train and they were broadsided by a train. Doris's leg was shattered and she was told that she would probably never walk again, definitely never dance again, and she would end up spending the next couple of months in a wheelchair. Now it's at this time that she realizes she's never going to dance again and ends up finding solace in listening to the radio. And at this time, big bands were really popular, and so she would sit in her room alone listening to big bands, especially Ella Fitzgerald, and she would work on singing, she would work on her phrasing, and then even before she was off the crutches, she would find herself seriously becoming a great singer, to the point where her mom would sign her up for voice lessons with a pretty popular voice teacher in the Cincinnati area. Well, look, the John Lennon and Bob Marley mural's gone. They painted over it. That lasted about 6 months. Now, at this time, Doris was 14 years old, and her voice teacher thought she was so good that she got her a singing job. She worked for free, but it was every Saturday on WLW in Cincinnati, which is the same station that I used to listen to the Reds on, and she would sing every Saturday morning for a couple of hours, popular hits of the day. Now, it was about a year into that a local club owner heard her singing and came and offered her a job. Now, she was barely 16 years old, if even, but she lied and said she was 18 to get the job. Now, this club owner, the first thing he did was he said, "I can't put Doris Kappelhoff on a billboard. That's not a good name." And at the time, Doris was singing a song Day After Day that was really popular, and so he said, "Why don't we just call you Doris Day?" And so she became Doris Day. Now, shortly into singing at this club, she was recognized by a couple of local band leaders, and actually one of them, Jimmy James, hired her to be the new singer in his big band. Now, there was a trumpet player or saxophone player there who would give Doris rides to the gigs because she was, like I said, she was barely 16 years old and couldn't drive, and Doris developed a crush on this guy. Now, Doris would also then be offered to sing for another band leader, and while singing for him, the famous Les Brown saw her singing, came up and offered her a job, and she went off and started singing for Les Brown. Now, singing for Les Brown was a huge opportunity, and they loved her to death. They treated her like a kid sister. They were total gentlemen around her, apparently. But she missed her, her boyfriend, or the guy that she had fallen in love with, and the next time she would come back into town and run into him, he would propose marriage, and she would be married a day before her 17th birthday. Now, there were a couple of problems with this marriage. For one thing, she was very young, and she decided as soon as she got married that she was going to give up singing. She decided to become the housewife, and her husband, unfortunately, was extremely jealous and would overreact and blow up at her on many occasions. One account was them coming back from the grocery store, and people had said hello to her at the grocery store, and as soon as they came home, her husband started smacking her around. Now, she ended up getting pregnant during this marriage, even though the marriage only lasted 2 years, kind of hoping that maybe that would help save the marriage, and it didn't. So at 2 years, she decided to walk away and had to go live with her grandmother. Now, as soon as Les Brown heard that Doris was divorced, he immediately called her and said, hey, if you ever want to come back, you always have a job with me singing. And so she came back, and they made the song Sentimental Journey a classic. In fact, I used to remember my grandmother always playing that song and humming that song around the house. Now, for the next couple of years, Doris would actually stay singing for Les Brown and would kind of break the rules of big band, where she would become so popular, people loved seeing her so much that she almost overshadowed the band in some cases, where she kind of stood out as being the lead singer of this group. Now, Sentimental Journey was so popular that it basically had them touring constantly. And at one point, during that 4-year span of them touring, Doris would start falling in love with another band member, and when he would propose to her, she would accept and again leave Les Brown's band. So Doris would once again then leave her son Terry with her grandmother, and her and her new husband would move out to Los Angeles. Her husband was originally from here, and they thought that with the boom of musicals in cinema, that they would have probably no problem getting picked up by a movie company or something like that, him being a musician and her being a pretty popular singer. Now, unfortunately, they weren't doing so well because there was a huge influx of like GIs coming back, and they ended up having to live in a trailer park for a little while until they were doing a road gig, and in New York, this club they were playing at offered Doris a really big gig, and I mean big, like good money, extended stay and everything. And by all accounts, this just made her husband kind of uncomfortable with her being the star of the show. It was said that he did not like the idea of being Mr. Doris Day. Now, right here is Doris' star, and it's right around the corner from what our vlog is about today. Because what ended up happening was Doris's success in New York, that new contract that she got, immediately intimidated her husband, and he, with just only being married 8 months, served her with divorce papers. Now, she didn't know what she was going to do, but what she did know was that she was leaving Hollywood. She was leaving Los Angeles. And she happened to be staying right around the corner. That's actually, this was the make or break place for her. Now, what ended up happening was, right before she was gonna move away, a friend of hers invited her to come to a party. And the party was actually at the house of a pretty famous composer named Julie Stein. And they were actually writing a musical that was going to be made starring Jack Carson. Now, she came to the party, they started playing on the piano. She was a well-known singer because of being in Les Brown's band, that they got her to sing, and before the end of the night, the composer had asked her to cut a screen test in the hopes of possibly starring opposite Jack Carson for this new movie. Now, what's interesting is that Doris did the screen test, and she said, I did a horrible job. I did it miserably, and I knew that was it. I'm out of here. I had literally already packed my bags, and then all of a sudden one day I get a phone call here at my apartment, my hotel, the Hollywood Plaza, and it's from Jack Carson, the star of the picture. That was unheard of in those days for the star of the picture to call anyone. And he called her and said, is this Doris Day? And she said, yes. And he said, what are you up to? And she said, getting ready to leave town. I'm packing my bags. And he said, well, I just saw your screen test and it was marvelous. They're gonna give you the job. She ended up getting the job. They had a hit song, and her career took off. She ended up making dozens of pictures, and it all started with that phone call here. I mean, can you imagine At this point, this would have been 1948 when her first movie would come out, playing opposite Jack Carson. I mean, she had lived an entire lifetime playing for big bands, being married twice, and all that before the age of 21. And then her life dramatically changed here at the age of 22, and she would go on to be one of the most beloved stars in Hollywood history. Now, I've vlogged this before. I've done the history of the Hollywood Plaza before, Star Plaza. But when you know that Doris Day was actually in one of these rooms and was actually thinking, I'm going back to Ohio, and I mean, just on her track record, you know she would have succeeded at something. She was not gonna not succeed. She was destined for greatness, but to think in one of those rooms, she herself would have had doubt, and she would go on to be a monumental movie star. It didn't take long for Doris into that contract to move Terry and her mother out here, and it only took 2 movies before she would decide to buy her own property up in the Toluca Lake area, and they would never be separated again. For the most part, for the next couple of years, every movie that Doris Day would make would be a musical because they would obviously take advantage of that beautiful voice of hers. Isn't it interesting how life works out? Someone whose life dream was to be a housewife and mother, then had a dream of being a dancer, that then turned into being a singer, and then being one of the most beloved actresses of all time. And yet she never got that happy home she always wanted. Even her longtime marriage to Marty Melcher was just plagued with a lot of lies and basically him not telling her the truth about their finances and putting her in debt. And all that being said, at one point they even basically became a live-in couple only, no sexual contact or anything. And yet when Marty would become sick, Doris would take care of him till the day he died. She never did divorce him. Now, Doris Day seemed to have found her happiness in animals and became a staunch animal rights activist for the rest of her life. She's still alive. The day before her birthday, she throws a big celebration and raises money for animal rights. Just a sweet person, and just celebrated her 96th birthday. Happy birthday, Doris Day. If you're looking for some Doris Day to get into, you can start with her music and listen to Que Sera, Sera. I mean, that's probably one of the most well-known things that she's known for. But if you want to try her movies, of course, try Lover Come Back, try Pillow Talk, try The Pajama Game. I think you'll enjoy all of them. She was a great actress. And the first movie that I ever saw with my grandmother that Doris Day was in that I've always loved was Send Me No Flowers. Now think of this. If Doris Day's 96, we've only talked about her today up until she's about 23, so we have a lot to talk about in the future. She would have came and gone from that doorway. Pretty cool that both her and Jackie Gleason have their star right around the corner from this place because they both lived here at one time. Also, I know I've mentioned before that George Burns lived here as well, and his star's right here. Well, he didn't live here necessarily. He had a penthouse office here because where he and Gracie would do their radio and TV show was just a block down the street. So Doris's story began here at Hollywood and Vine, and Hollywood, just like a lot of ours does. Now, if anybody's earned this star, it's you, Doris Day. I do hate to be the bad guy here, friend, but I do have to make the bed. Yep. I'm gonna have to ask you to vacate that section for 5 minutes, maybe? Please? Well, goodbye, my friends. I'm going to call it a day. John and I are going to go hang out with my friend Kevin and watch some sports, and I don't think that'll be much fun for you guys, so Have a great night. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Goodbye.